Hey everyone.
Hi.
How's it going? Well, let's talk about what this channel is. Becca, what's the name of the channel?
It's Getting Outside the 9 to 5.
Yeah, and we chose that because we both have very rewarding but very demanding 9 to 5 jobs, sometimes more than 9 to 5, but that's okay. We love them, and we decided we would want to be really intentional with getting outside again.
That's right. We got married almost a year ago.
Just about.
In November. And we have had a really fun time exploring and adventuring with each other over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And this guy has encouraged me to get outside more. He grew up backpacking and camping in a much more primitive way.
Yes.
But I grew up in woods that looked very similar to this without this amazing mountain peak above us. Exploring and spending a lot of time running around with my cousins and family. But often while camping or traveling, I was the kid. And so still learning a lot about all of the gear and what makes getting outside fun.
Yeah, and a big part of the cause for this too is we bought a new truck. And then it has off-road. It's a Ford Ranger 4x4 off-road. And we were like, we don't want that. We don't need that. I never need to do that. And one of my coworkers was like, oh, are you going to go overlanding? And I was like, what's that? And then I learned what it is. And I'm like, oh my God, that's everything I ever wanted to do.
And now we have a garage full of gear.
Yeah, but we're brand new to that. We're brand new to primitive camping as a couple. I did it a lot when I was younger, but I haven't in a long time. And even then I was really focused on backpacking. Which is very different. It's all about how light can I go, like what can I get away with carrying without killing myself. And now it's a little more like, well, we're going to be somewhat luxurious while still being somewhat primitive. So it's going to be really fun for us. I think we're really getting into like the gear and the locations and thinking about the fun things we can do. And then that kind of led to our idea for this channel. Yeah,
I think when we've traveled in the past, we come home with like 2 photos and maybe a video and realize we definitely did not document in the way we wanted to. So at the very least, this channel is to document our journeys and adventures, if not just for ourselves, but hopefully for you guys too. Hopefully you'll learn something along the way, as we will certainly be learning.
Yeah, we're definitely not good at this, and that's okay, because one of our core philosophies is to be good at something, you got to be bad at it first, and so we're going to document ourselves being bad. I also just want to say, I think the reason we're bad at document is because we're both really good, I think, at like living in a moment and enjoying a moment and taking time, and that's great until like 2 days later, you're like, oh man, I didn't really get a picture of that, Hey, to bring this to a close, lastly, we would love any advice. We are eager learners every day. That's one of the things I admire about you most. You love deeply learning new things, and this is something new for us, so it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah. So come join us as we get outside.
All right. See you out there.
We started our adventure at the Vado Motel, which we spotted the last time we were in Albuquerque. It had a really cool vibe and a really awesome beer garden, which unfortunately was closed when we got there.
The hotel opened in 1937 and was one of New Mexico's first motels to greet Route 66 travelers. Highly recommend it. Also recommend the huevos at the restaurant across the street. Great fuel to get started on your trip. We started our journey right out of Albuquerque and headed north towards Santa Fe. We found this route after researching a lot of different blogs, which we'll link in the video, just in case you're interested in trying it out yourself.
The first stretch of our drive saw us heading northeast along 25 to Santa Fe. And I have to say, these drives always make me feel a little nostalgic, as I was born in New Mexico and spent the first few years of my life there.
Our first stop was the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe. Having been to Santa Fe before, we made a quick pit stop to explore the museum's collection, and it did not disappoint. What was even more incredible was as we left Santa Fe to head north to Bandelier National Monument, we were able to see the landscapes that so inspired her amazing pieces.
We were greeted with the first of many spectacular views as we approached Bandelier in the Jemez Mountains near Los Alamos. Bandelier was once home to the ancestral Pueblo people, where they carved their homes out of the volcanic rock of the cliff face. Bandelier is a national monument preserving the homes of the ancestral Puebloans, or the Anasazi, and their pueblos built both in the side of the mountain and as freestanding structures between 1150 and 1600.
The National Monument now protects over 33,000 acres of land that was honestly a gift to get to explore. As we walked around, we just kept imagining what life must have been like for the ancestral Pueblo people on this beautiful land.
Unfortunately, most of the trails there were closed due to recent flooding, but we still got to see the bulk of the Pueblo and the cave dwellings.
After a day of exploring, we took Toto just down the road to the Juniper Family Campground in Bandelier, had a delicious dinner, built a beautiful fire, and talked about our day under the stars. We woke up a little less than pretty, but when we rolled over and looked out the window, we were greeted by the ponderosa pines, and we knew our day was off to a great start.
After cleaning up and packing up camp, we were on our way to Los Alamos, stopping multiple times to take in views like this. Having recently watched Oppenheimer, it was of course awesome to see all the history there at Los Alamos. But it was also a little bit surreal because the town is, well, by outside appearances, just a normal town nestled in the Jemez Mountains.
We toured the Fuller Lodge built in 1928 before we walked down Bathtub Row to check out Oppenheimer's house, of course.
After all of our adventures and exhausting travel, it was time to relax. And there was no better place to do that than the spa at Ojo Caliente. The spa has been around since the late 1800s, where travelers were drawn to the natural springs and geothermal pools. We got a private pool all to ourselves for an hour, and it was absolute bliss.
While we could have stayed and soaked for hours, we left Ojo Caliente and headed northeast towards the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge. The bridge stands 650 feet above the Rio Grande and was built in the 1960s, which honestly I was a little surprised by. It's the second highest bridge in the U.S. highway system and the fifth highest in the U.S. As we approached the bridge across a very long stretch of flat land, it was honestly a little unimpressive, but the second we walked to the edge, we realized what we were in for. The views were amazing. We joked how it would have been wild to have been an early settler walking across this land and halting immediately at this incredible gorge. I can't imagine how many miles they had to walk to get to a place that was passable. Fortunately, we were able to drive right across it.
That night, we found some dispersed, remote camping, which was great. We got an opportunity to enjoy nature, but of course, with Toto the camper van, we were never too far from the comforts of home.
We had a serene creekside breakfast to set us up for a day of exploring. We started in Taos, one of my favorite stops. Taos is a town that is home to an incredible town center, a ski resort, a World Heritage Site, and so much more. There is this cute area full of boutiques, restaurants, and coffee shops that I could have stayed in for days.
Pecos was our next stop, which blew us away with how lush and green it was, and so much history. There was a ruin of a pueblo, a Spanish mission, and even a Civil War battlefield nearby.
There was a kiva on site that we were able to climb down into. A kiva is a large room that is circular and underground and is often used as a place of worship and used for spiritual ceremonies. Pecos was incredibly rich in history, and I strongly recommend, if you're driving through the park, to take a stop at the Visitor Center to learn even more about the land and the people that lived there.
As we started winding down our trip, we visited maybe my favorite place on earth, my grandparents' house in Placitas.
In all honesty, when we started this trip, we were both exhausted and life felt pretty hard. But as we got outside, spent time with one another away from the noise, and got back to our roots, we really found ourselves again, and we're pretty excited about that. We're back home in Virginia, loving on our family, and ready for our next adventure. We'll see you out there.